In this section, we're going to put together the QromaScan LightBox and show you how to set up the QromaScan SlideBox to set up slides and negatives. There are three different ways that you can use to power the QromaScan LightBox. The first is to use the included 9-volt adapter that came with the LightBox. Now this is great if you're gone somewhere and you don't have access to a USB plug or a power outlet. The second way is to use a standard household DC adapter. Now this didn't come with the QromaScan LightBox, but you can buy them on Amazon for less than $10. As long as it says it's 12 volt and it has a standard DC tip, it should work. Finally, the most versatile way to power the LightBox is to use the QromaScan USB adapter, which will allow you to use any USB outlet as a power source for the LightBox. You can use a variety of different USB outlets to power the LightBox, including your iPhone charger, a port on your computer, or my favorite, which is a rechargeable USB power bank. Okay, let's put together the QromaScan LightBox. I take it out of the box and I like to rotate it so that the spine is on my left so I can set the brace arm easier, which I grab and guide right into the slot. Next, I guide the top flap down into position. When I'm done, everything should be lined up and should look like this. I'm going to use the QromaScan USB adapter and a battery pack to power the lights. You can pick these up on Amazon for about $10, and this one has a built-in solar panel and 2 USB ports. I'm going to use the second USB port to charge my iPhone, so it will slow down the drain on my battery as I use the camera. Next, I'll slide my iPhone right along this edge created by the tab until it reaches the foam pad and make sure that the phone is firmly in the corner. One thing I should mention is to turn off any strong overhead or side lights. QromaScan works best when it supplies the light. Now, if you're in a place where you can't control the lighting, here's a tip. Use the LightBox cover to seal off the left side of the LightBox. This is the side that's most sensitive to light bleed, and this is an effective way to minimize it. Finally, if you have a SlideBox for slides and negatives, let's take a look at how to set it up. I like to keep my USB adapter inside it so I never lose it. I'm going to use the same USB battery pack to power it. Next, I recommend taking 2 slides and placing them down near the retaining wall of the SlideBox. This will compensate for the 1/8 inch thickness of the base of the device and will keep your phone level while you're scanning. The QromaScan app uses the orientation of your iPhone to determine if it's scanning photos or slides. When you slip it into the SlideBox, it should automatically orient to the scan view for slides and negatives. However, if you've turned on your rotation lock on your iPhone, you'll need to turn it off or we won't be able to properly detect which scanning mode you're in. Once you have it set up like this, you should be able to put slides into the illuminated backplane and see them on your phone. It should line up correctly, but if it doesn't, you can drag the crop box around until it's perfectly aligned. Now that we have the devices set up, we need to do a couple things to get the app set up before we can start scanning. Now, when you start the app for the first time, there may seem like a barrage of alerts and permission requests, and I want to go over each one so you know what they do. The first alert you're likely to see is for notifications. If you grant permissions for QromaScan to send you notifications, then we will alert you whenever there's a new major version, and we don't use this alert system for any other purpose. Also, the first time you launch an app after we've released a new version, you're likely to see these walkthrough slides that tell you about the new changes. If later you'd like to see these slides again, go to the documentation settings and then tap on the What's New link. Next, QromaScan will ask you for permission to access your contacts. We use this to be able to recognize your contact names during voice recognition. So if you have friends and family members in your photos, you can use those names in your descriptions and they'll be accurately recognized. I should mention that we never transmit your contacts to our server or anywhere else. They are strictly used on the device for recognition. The next little bit of setup is the choice between local storage or iCloud, and I would highly recommend choosing iCloud. This option allows you to see your photos almost immediately on your Mac or PC and lets you configure important settings on your computer. If you prefer using Dropbox instead, I'll go over that in a moment. If you choose local, however, your photos will be available only on this device and you'll have to transfer them using a cable with iTunes file sharing, which is a slow and cumbersome process. Next, you'll be asked if you want to use QromaScan with Siri. Choose this option and you'll be able to ask Siri to find photos that you've tagged with QromaScan. So that's the first wave of settings. After you start scanning, you're going to be asked to grant permission to be able to use the camera and the microphone and the speech recognition engine. For now, let's go into the app settings. Our first order of business is to set the language preferences. Now, if you speak a language other than English, select that from one of the available options, and this will allow recognition in that language. Next, we're going to tap on Cloud Sync and confirm that iCloud is enabled. You can switch it off here or turn off Dropbox syncing. Only one Cloud Sync service can be turned on at a time. Well, that's the basic setup. In the next section, we're going to talk about the Relationship Manager. QromaScan version 3 features the ability to tag your photos using natural language, and part of this functionality is the ability to use natural and familial words like mom and dad in your descriptions, and then tag their real full names to the image. The setting we use to handle this is called the Relationship Manager, and let's dive in and see how it works. So I'm back in my app settings, and I'll tap on the Relationship Manager to reveal this empty list view. Now I can start adding relationships right here on my phone, but it's much faster and easier to do on my computer with Cloud Sync turned on. Now I have iCloud enabled, but you can do this with Dropbox as well. I'll hop over to my Mac and tap on the iCloud Drive item here in the sidebar and open my QromaScan folder. Inside this folder is another folder called Settings, and inside there is my Relationships file, which I will open with any standard text editor. Adding relationships is quite simple, as you'll see, and if you've not done this before, there's a little starter here to give you an idea of how we define relationships. I'm going to delete this and start fresh. Now, rather than peck this out right here, I am, like Julia Child, going to go over to the oven, so to speak, and paste in my own relationship sentences here so you can see how it works. Relationship sentences are just as easy as defining a familial noun, like mom, dad, uncle, or aunt, and then mapping it to a particular name. As soon as QromaScan detects that noun used in a description, we then add the full name to that image's metadata keywords. So here at the top, I'm in a lot of my photos, so I'm mapping the nouns I and me to my name. You can map multiple nouns to the same name, as I've done here, and all you have to do is separate each noun with a comma. Then I add an equal sign and then follow that with a full name. When I'm done with that sentence, I just add a carriage return to go to the next line. There are times when you want to map plural nouns to more than one person, such as if you have a photo with both your grandparents or both your sisters. That's easy too. Just start with the plural noun as I've done with parents, then follow it with the equal sign, and then list the people one by one and make sure to use a comma to separate them. Don't put a comma after the last one, but do use a carriage return. There's one more use case that will come up, and that's when you have one relationship that might map to multiple people. For example, if you have multiple brothers or cousins or uncles. That's easy too. Just add each noun as normal as I've done with my uncles. When you run into a situation where you have a photo and you need to specify one particular uncle, just follow the word uncle with the first name of the uncle you want to use. For example, I would say something like, "This is my Uncle Joe and I at Vasona Park in the summer of 1988. In this case, we'll resolve the multiple uncles with Joe Williams. If you don't specify the first name, QromaScan will use the very first uncle on your list, which in this case is Spartan Williams. There's a more extreme case down at the bottom where I have two sets of grandparents. If I want to use the second pair, I would say grandparents Audrey to add the full names of my second set of grandparents to my photos. If I had a photo with my first set, I would only need to say the word grandparents without a qualifier since they're listed first. So that's the basic structure of the Relationship Manager. Now you might notice that I have my dog listed here, and that goes to demonstrate that we can map any noun to any name, so think outside the box if you need to. When I'm done, I just hit Save to save the file, and iCloud will send those changes back to my iPhone. After a minute or two, I should be able to tap on this relationship link and see the names I've added, just like this. Now, all the names are available for me to use in my photo descriptions. So that's it for the basic setup. Later, in the advanced section, we'll cover how to add custom names and places to QromaScan. Our next step is to talk about how the voice recognition system works and start scanning photos.